Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. All right, before we get started with our normal segment stuff today, I'm always behind on these things, but I did want to mention it. Maybe a couple weeks or so, right? I mean, like 2, 3 weeks ago, I was in the Digi Green Room with Sebastian Gorka, waiting to go on, and in there with me were actors. Jordan Belfly was in there, and anyway, they were promoting this movie Nefarious, and I'm like, you know what, I'll get it, I'll check it out because it looked good. And I was on after the interview. I'll tell you what, Hollywood is totally out of ideas. That's why they're constantly remaking things and regendering and either race swapping or gender swapping and retelling these stories, particularly of the classics, because we've gotten into this before. You want to, if you really want to change a society or change a system, you have to retell their story. You have to retell their classics. So that's part of that is conscious. But the other part is that they're just out of ideas and they're not particularly talented anymore. That's the truth of it. Anyway, these guys put on one hell of a no pun intended, one hell of a performance, including you would think that the both of them did. Jordan did, they both did, but it's fantastic. I did say I would get it, and I did. And a couple nights ago, when I was like, I don't sleep very well. A couple nights ago, when I'm up, I'm like, hey, Laura. By the way, I told them I'd get this. Let's pop it in and let's get it and see. It was amazing, and I would really suggest checking it out. It was really cool. If of course it's a movie it is a faith movie, but not in the way you think, right, Laura? Not in the way you would think. And it's creative, even though it's telling the oldest story in the world. Really, the oldest story in the world. And why did I think about it? I've been meaning to bring this up, but then I'm like contemplating how to talk to you about Ohio issue 1, and it hit me because there is this moment in the movie, and I don't want to give too much away, but where they do address, well, the demonic entity who's possessing the serial killers, who's on death row, is addressing our flagrant practice, how flagrantly we practice abortion, and basically saying how, well, we're winning here, James. We're winning here. It's not the usual Bible thumping, self-aggrandizing, judgmental, right? What's the other word I'm looking for? The typical way that you will hear, no offense, Christians and pro-life people talk about these issues. And they have yet to really be able to sell this. J.D. Vance had the right way of trying to sell Ohio issue 1, which went down in flames. All right, in case people don't know, it lost, and it lost badly. And people keep asking me, why do you keep saying Ohio is not a red state? And why do you keep doing that? First of all, it's not my job to pump up the Republican base. It's my job to tell people the truth. And the truth is, the modern era of Donald Trump created certain phenomena. And without him, those phenomena are gone. It's because he's the only one who has made a believable, authentic argument to a sector of the electorate that determines who wins and loses elections. Oh, but Richie wins it by 10, and Mike DeWine won. It's a governor's race. And Mike DeWine, by the way, was almost lost to Richard Cordray. The polls sucked that year, so I don't want to get into it too much. But Mike DeWine was ahead by like one poll or something in 2018. But Sherrod Brown, the last time he was up, and he's up again, the last time he was up, he beat a very traditional Republican. In 2022, Democrats put forward a very strong Democratic candidate in the form of Tim Ryan from Mahoning, which is very important to what we're going to talk about here today. From an area of the state, particularly the Northeast, where Barack Obama killed it, where Tim Ryan, as a congressman, could run very strongly, where Al Gore, where John Kerry, where, again, 2 times Obama, obviously very, very strongly in 08, but still it was kind of close. It wasn't an Iowa-like blowout. A lot of people forget Iowa not in the Trump era. Iowa votes to the left of Ohio and has for a while. Even when George Bush won Iowa, he won it by 7/10 of a percentage point when he won Iowa by over 2 points, right? So Mitt Romney loses both of those states, but he loses Iowa by about 6 and he loses Ohio by about 3. All right. So this part of the state doesn't buy the abortion argument the way the right tries to sell it. And JD Vance didn't even try to sell it like that. He said, we're trying to make it more difficult for radical outside activists to amend our Constitution. And the left made it about abortion. Because the right did not stay on message, there's several things that happens. First of all, the donor class is dumb, which we're going to talk about a lot. They are stupid. The left, they do have more donors, but the right has enough where they could make their case, folks. They don't because they're stupid. Because the same idiots run these referendums all the time. I'm sorry. I'm not here to make friends. You guys lose and you lose a lot. You don't deserve any credit. You're incoherent. Your message is complete. Is this about abortion or is this about how we amend the Constitution? What is going on here? And donors are too busy stuffing the pockets of Never Back Down and others to get into fights that matter. And you needed to target these people who don't like the Republican Party, but tend to agree with them on a lot. The problem is they don't know who the Republican Party is. They don't. They don't know who to trust. They don't know who to believe. Had that schmuck who's running again been the nominee for U.S. Senate, he probably would have lost to Tim Ryan. Matt. Josh, who was very strong in 18, Josh Mandel, against Sherrod Brown. When we were polling that race, Josh Mandel was the only potential Republican candidate who was winning, who was beating Sherrod Brown. And for people who don't think these crossover voters still exist, Mandel was up anywhere between 6 and 9 points, something like that. And Jim was getting crushed by about the same margin. So you could have these net swings of like 15 points, depending on who the candidate was. Back then, Josh was viewed not as a Joe or a Jeff Rhino kind of Republican, but as a conservative state treasurer, former state treasurer, and somebody who was on the Trump chain. This time around, you better take heed to what happened in Ohio 1, because they're showing you they're going through the same motions. And I'm talking to you, Republicans. They're going through the same motions in Ohio that they always do. Like Sola Rose, who is a vehement never Trumper, pretending to be pro-Trump, even endorsed him and everything. This is a man who refused to say he would vote for Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton. It said he would never endorse him. When the Billy Bush tape came out, he was basically on the Trump should drop out and let Mike Pence run bandwagon. This is a vehement never Trumper. He is currently ahead in the primary polls for a very simple reason. Republicans aren't paying attention. They don't know who the hell he is. They don't know Bernie Moreno that much. They know the other guy, which is why he's in second. I can't even bring myself to say his name, how he betrayed his own team and his own club. When you choke to social pressures, like I'm going to change the name of my team because it offends white liberals who are pretending to speak for minorities, you're a total joke, and they will steamroll you in Washington, D.C. But you may remember JD Vance faced the same thing. He was down in the primary polls, running a distant third for a long time. I kept telling JD, just hang on, be patient. When voters start to pay attention, eventually you will get the Trump endorsement, because I just knew that was coming. He just was then at the end, at the end of the day, the president will come home for you, and it's going to become clear you're going to be the America First candidate, and you will win, and you'll win easy. And then you'll go into the general election, and you'll see all of these polls that show it's basically even race, and you will win between 6 and 8 points. Our very final, I think it was, I just looked at it yesterday, actually. Final Ohio poll, we gave three different scenarios. We gave the very pro Tim Ryan electorate, which looked a lot like 18, much more educated than a presidential election. The last time Sherrod Brown won. Even in, and by the way, there were USA Today polls that literally had Sherrod Brown up 20 points. Go back and look. You will see. Ohio is one of the worst polled states. This same thing's going to happen here to Bernie Moreno, or better, unless Republicans intend to lose that seat again. Before I get into the map, I think it's worth telling this story because the last couple of days I've put up tweets like Bernie Moreno is the only candidate in this race with MAGA bona fides. Bernie Moreno is there's only one America First candidate in the race, period, primary in general, for U.S. Senate in Ohio, and that is Bernie Moreno. Bernie was going to run last cycle, but he took a look at the field and he said, and he even told the former president, same thing. I think J.D. Vance is a stronger candidate. I think J.D. has the beat on the moment. I know I get it. I know what time it is, but I think J.D. is uniquely qualified or uniquely strong this particular cycle. And because it is going to be somebody like Tim Ryan, we can't take him as a joke. Doesn't matter the president wins Ohio. The Republicans don't. Not easily. So I am going to step aside and I'm going to let J.D. Vance have a crack at it this time. That is so rare in Republican politics. I don't know if Laura's got the ability to jump in or not. I know she's in the other room doing her thing. But she has this thing where it's like a God complex. It's a Messiah complex. We see it all the time. We'll meet with candidates and they'll say, hey, what do you think? And we'll flatly tell them, you're not the strongest candidate. Why don't you wait? Let so-and-so, do this. And, if you truly are this believer, you just sat in front of me and on the other side from my desk. If you just sat in front of me and gave me this pitch about what a true believer you are, if you truly are a true believer, you will step aside and let the stronger candidate do this. It almost never happens. I could count on less than one hand, actually, how many times in my entire career it's happened. The right has a problem with Messiah complexes. And it's the same reason they can't get a coherent message to pass a statewide referendum. Everyone's got to be in charge of this and that. And that, I'm going to push this message. I'm going to push that message. They don't know how to work together. They don't know how to step aside and let, for the good of the whatever their movement is, their beliefs are, they don't know how to do that like the left does. Bernie Moreno did it. And I'm telling you, if you elect somebody like, even though, again, getting back to the polls, like you have like Frank looks like he's the strongest, but he's not. No one looks like the strongest, but he's not. Or stronger, but he's not. The only reason why Bernie is polling is weaker compared to the other people, but just don't know who he is. All right, let's take a look at the map. We've showed you the part of this map before. To the left is Ohio issue 1. Yes is in blue shades. No is in green shades. The middle map is Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama. And the eastern map is 2020. Or wait a minute. Is that 2020 or did I put 2016? Let me just double check. I think 2020 is a little bit more solid. It's up to Toledo. Like that's what I was looking at. My eyes must have played a little trick on me real quick, but just to make sure, you know me, I like to make total sure. Yeah, I'm right. Okay, this is 2020. Let me just double check. Yeah, it's that. Okay. So it's Trump versus Biden on the right, which looks basically identical to Trump versus Clinton. Only Trump, he actually, ironically, did better in some areas than he did against Hillary Clinton. Even though technically, on paper anyway. Well, that's not true because of the number of votes. So never mind. I'm not even going to make that claim. All right. What do you see? We were just talking about why Tim Ryan is a strong candidate. Why Sherrod Brown actually is a strong candidate. What do you see? Does the Ohio issue one map not look like a traditional presidential vote share for a traditional Rhino Republican? Doesn't it? Even though the margins may be different, because no is going to win more than Barack Obama won over Mitt Romney. But look at the geographical representation here. Even north of Franklin, no won the day. So that's even Romney can say he did better than that. In part of the central part of the state, you see the one blue dot in the middle map. That's Franklin, the Franklin suburbs. That's where Karl Rove had a total meltdown, by the way, a complete meltdown over. He thought Mitt Romney was going to carry that county, and he thought the call for Obama in Ohio was too premature, even though it wasn't premature at all. Arizona in 2020 was premature. This is not premature. But you can clearly see, and here, let me bring up some of the ones that I highlighted here. Let it load up. You can clearly see in the Northeast, in the areas that is Donald Trump country, like Trumbull County, where Barack Obama won. All the way up to Ashtabula. Outside of Cuyahoga, Joe Biden even barely won Summit. He won it by 10, but it's not as big as it looks. Summit is south of Cuyahoga County, the blue in the Northeast. Right. But, outside of, even Medina goes to Trump. But outside of Cuyahoga, there is no support for traditional Republicanism, the Ben Shapiro kind of arguments, even though I guarantee you, if you were to knock on doors in Portage and in Trumbull and Columbiana, Ashtabula, for the most part, people, if you laid out to people, what is your position on abortion? They would give you a very simple reply. I also think there's a Barnes element going. The bottom line is that some of the Trump coalition does not agree with traditional Republican platforms on not only social issues, but for instance, for those of you, and I think I saw in the locals chat, people were bringing up Barnes, who was a no on issue one. And that was a matter of Barnes being more populous, right? So I don't want it to be incredibly difficult to defeat an amendment we may try to get passed, all right? So Barnes is taking a little bit more of a populist position on issue one rather than a more constitutional issue. Barnes, if you're listening, buddy, I don't want to twist your words. I'm just saying, like, you're not thinking like Patrick Henry. Let's make this as difficult as possible to amend. You're not thinking like that. You're thinking more the lines of it is hard for the little guy to get reforms, so let's not make it so much harder. All right, but the bottom line, it doesn't matter. I'm not here to debate the validity of their arguments. What I'm here to do is point out that there is disagreement still between the traditional. I hate using this word. There's got to be a better word than traditional or rhino. There has to be something better. Because I saw the other day in a New Hampshire Journal, right? It's the New Hampshire Journal, I think it is. Local paper, they did a poll. I believe it was done by Coefficient or somebody. Anyway, they started to ask things like we ask, are you an America First Republican? Are you a traditional Republican? They said a traditional Republican is a Republican of Reagan. It's not true. Mike Pence is no Ronald Reagan. Mitt Romney is no Ronald Reagan. John McCain is no Ronald Reagan. Lindsey McGraham, same damn thing, is no Ronald Reagan. John Thune is no Ronald Reagan. Mitch McConnell is no Ronald Reagan. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. There's social conservatives like Ted Cruz and others. There are rhinos, and then there is MAGA. That's it. There was barely any Reagan when Reagan was around. Reagan is a myth. Reagan passed gun control. Reagan let in tons of people and got duped by Democrats and provided amnesty for them. Reagan did a lot of liberal shit, folks. He's a myth. It's not real. Anyway, He still had a more populist tone than any of the Mitch McConnells and whatnot. So the idea you would say a traditional Republican is a Reagan Republican is BS. Again, they weren't Reagan Republicans when he was around. They hated him. In fact, they hated him almost as much as they hated Donald Trump. I know that's hard to believe, but they hated Ronald Reagan. So we need something else. We need a different name. And the bottom line is, because we are having a hard time right now, even hatching out how to debate these identities, how do you think the voters of Northeastern Ohio feel? And it's not just the Northeast. It's just that very clearly you could see Estabula, Trumbull, Columbiana, Mahoning, all the four, and I'm in the far northeast part of the state right now. Estabula is the most northeastern county in the state of Ohio. Just south of that is Trumbull. Just south of Trumbull is Mahoning, and just south of Mahoning is Columbiana. All right. So, and then to the west of Columbiana, you have Stark. North of that is Portage. I always butcher. I'm not even going to try. It starts with a G, and then Lake. There are a lot of votes in this area. This is the part of the state where it can make or break you. Because Vance did well enough in this area, he beat Tim Ryan, and he held the rest. There's also the part like Toledo is to the northwest. All right. Toledo is the darkest county in the northwest that you see there, the darkest green county in the northwest part of the state. It is actually Lucas County, but that is where Toledo is. You can see Trump wins Wood, Sandusky, Ottawa, and issue 1 struggled in those areas. All right. And in fact, Erie, it didn't pass in Erie either, which can be a little bit more swingy. Not for Romney. He just blows, period. Romney just straight blows. He almost carried Sandusky. It was close. Or he didn't carry. It just was close. Obama did not do as well in Sandusky as he had in 08. But he still won it. And it's just like, when it's the Trump coalition, it basically boxes the left in a Toledo and in a Cuyahoga, and then obviously in the Southwest in Cincinnati. And that's it. And that's really the only place they find or have any refuge from the Trump coalition in Ohio. And they get crushed everywhere else. You can even see in Trump's strongest counties in the state, folks, there is some overlap between whether or not, even if issue 1 passed, it didn't pass as strongly. So Noble, which is in the eastern part of the state, more southeastern, it's a Trump county by 81 points. He won it 80.1 to 81 basically. If you round up, you won it by 81 points to Joe Biden's 18.5 roughly. And you can see here it actually was lagging about 20, almost 20 points behind that. Yes, was lagging. So it there's just parts of the state where Trump does extremely well. Some overlap, which is Holmes. That's not the margin Trump had, but close. All right. Also in the more central eastern part of the state. But you can see the darkest, reddest areas on the map, on Trump's map to the far right of this, don't always coincide. So even if yes won, it didn't win it by the margins that you see Trump squeeze out of some of these areas. So very clearly, even though the turnout was not presidential level turnout, it was not about 3 million votes, folks. Not even. There was still Trump areas where very clearly some high propensity Trump votes still voted no. All right. So there you have it. I don't need to spend any more time on that. The identity crisis is a major, major, major problem. And another major problem is, again, how stupid Republicans are versus their enemy, which is much more organized enemy. In the book club, we were talking the other day about Federalists versus anti-Federalists. And the Federalists, whether you think they achieved their overall goal or not, they were organized, very organized. The anti-Federalists were not. Many of them were anonymous, never even came out. They came under the names of like Mercy and Brutus, right? And Madison and Hamilton were much, much more organized and sophisticated, largely because their goal was more simple. I don't know that I'm trying to convince the whole country. I know 2/3 of the New York legislature, or, legislature at the time, their legislative body, 2/3 of the delegates from New York at the time oppose ending the Articles of Confederation and supplanting it with a new national government. So we have to convince the New York legislature. That was their goal. They stuck to it. The Anti-Federalists were just kind of throwing arguments all over the place in a very incoherent fashion. At the end of the day, I think they got kind of lucky and they did convince Massachusetts we can move forward like this without something else. And that's where the Bill of Rights come from. Eventually, Massachusetts will propose a series of amendments. Those won't turn into later the Bill of Rights. But that was like luck of the draw. They were making all these crazy arguments in a very unorganized manner. And because they were not successful in their goal. You could say the Federalists were not either. They did not convince either New York or Massachusetts to just go forward with the plan in hand. They had to take the compromise of the Bill of Rights. But the Anti-Federalists, their goal was not a compromise and a Bill of Rights. Their goal was to completely stop the new national government from being created. They were less organized and they lost. And even though both did not achieve their goals, it is, I think, easily fair to say that the Anti-Federalists were less successful than the Federalists. Organization is a big thing, and having a coherent message is a big thing. It doesn't matter whether you're putting your argument in pamphlets in the late 18th century, early 19th century, or you're trying to win a statewide referenda in the year 2023. Persuasion basically still has certain elements that need to be met. There's certain thresholds that have to be hit. And they just simply did not hit them. All right. Let me bring something up about another. Let's continue with this theme that Republican donors are stupid. Joe Biden should be one of the easiest presidents to beat in the modern era. I would argue he's even weaker, much weaker than Donald Trump was. And Donald Trump was vulnerable. Without COVID, Trump would have sailed to re-election. They would not have been able to change the laws. There wouldn't even have been certain voters who went for Biden. That wouldn't have happened. So, COVID aside, I'm not sure you can even compare Biden to Trump. I mean, it's more like a Carter situation. It really is. Yet I can't help but to think this disorganization, this house divided element that the Republican Party has is a weakness that's going to cost them. They will do whatever they can do in their power to keep Donald Trump from being the nominee. If that happens, the party's finished. I will predict right now there will be a fracture of the Republican Party. I've said it again. I've said it before. I'll say it again. That will make the fracture of the Ross Perot coalition look like a friggin' paper cut, and it will most likely end up the end of the Republican Party as a national political force. Heed my warning. Note that parties don't last forever. I don't know why they're in this fake security. You could go the way of the Whig. Quite simply. So, here's a premise poll. Came out last night. So, this is 538's little project, all right? Let me give you some headlines from the poll. I know it's hard to see, so I will zoom in and I'll tell you. But let me give you some headlines from the poll before we do that, all right? This is actually, I don't want to give you that. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Registered voters. Trump 42, Biden 38. So Trump plus 4. Funny, this very website called our polls, all sorts of names. And now they're basically showing the same thing. You can't have candidates in the 30s like this. No, what you can't have is what like ABC and the Washington Post show. There's going to be a lot more undecideds this early. Biden 36, DeSantis 34. GOP presidential race nomination: Trump 54, DeSantis 18, Ramaswamy 7, Pence 6, Haley 4, Scott 4, Christie 1. Head to head: Trump 65, DeSantis 26. Now, instead of wasting all of their money trying to foil the majority opinion of the Republican electorate, they should be making their party stronger. They should be making it more easy to defeat Joe Biden, but they're too stupid and too selfish to do that. Here are the demographics up here. On Twitter, I said, look at the crosstabs and tell me why. Give me the demographic that most illustrates why and how stupid Republican donors are. And I'm going to give you the answer right now. We have been seeing the same thing that the premise poll on 538 has been showing for quite a while now. And we've been seeing it for years. We're almost, 3 years into Joe Biden's presidency. We have been seeing it for at least a year and a half. How do I know? I'm going to show you the national tracker. I'm not done with it yet, but I started to go back into our old archives, and I'm showing the Trump versus Biden trend line and in our polling. And I can say since at least looks like October of 2021, we started to see something like this. Okay. Or not, October of 2021. So almost a full year into Joe Biden's presidency. There's registered voter. Are you a registered voter? Yes or no? 1,306 were registered voters. 343 were not. So out of the total 1,726 sample size in this poll, only 1,306 are actually registered voters, which is where, if you look at the presidential election, they get the 54-18 that I just read out to you. Now, look at the adults. Look at the combined when you just add people who aren't registered. Look at Trump's margin over DeSantis when you look at people who aren't even registered to vote. Oh, Rich, just a Republican primary. Okay, let's go up, shall we? Donald Trump leads Joe Biden among registered voters 42-38. Look at when you look at the combined adult sample. It's 41-34. I went back and I found CNN referencing this before the 2020 election. I found the CNN poll that had Biden up, but said that the race was essentially tied among all adults. Started digging and I saw a Quinnipiac poll. Then I found a Quinnipiac poll in Florida. So others had been seeing this as well. You haven't heard a damn word about it. Why is this crazy? Because normally, likely voter polls and registered voter polls, but definitely likely voter polls, have been more favorable to Republicans in the modern era. Democrats need a big new voter turnout to win. That is no longer the case. No longer the case. Does it translate to all Republicans? No, it doesn't. Ron DeSantis does significantly worse, 20 points worse, ladies and gentlemen, against Joe Biden among non-registered voters. So here you have Trump taking 42% of those who say I am not registered, Joe Biden taking only 24%, DeSantis takes 24%, and Biden takes 22%. So the net effect, unless it's really, these people will never register. They just will never care, and they will never vote if they're even eligible to. But here you can clearly see that Trump can get 20% of them. He can get them to vote. And if they were to vote, they would vote for him. Why wouldn't these Klaus Schwab wannabes like Peter Fye Why wouldn't they be spending their money not trying to convince Glenn Youngkin to get his ass kicked and destroy his career like he convinced Ron DeSantis to get his ass kicked and destroy his career? Why wouldn't he be putting money into these efforts to get these low propensity to not even register yet? Why wouldn't he be putting his money toward using these voters to beef up Republican registration? The truth is, folks, people keep asking me, what about you and Barnes's thing? What about you and Barnes's thing? Ladies and gentlemen, I have shown big money people plans to register hundreds of thousands of new voters in the Rust Belt states. Not 100,000 across the Rust Belt. 700,000 in Michigan alone. Easy. Easy. I think relatively simple. There's hundreds of thousands of them in each of these states. They don't care. They're too busy trying to prevent Donald Trump from winning the presidential election. The same way that little boy Ricketts and Doug Ducey just was a stupid figurehead, but the Ricketts are not. The same way they were trying to prevent Kerry Lake from becoming the governor of Arizona, from trying to prevent Doug Mastriano from becoming the governor of Pennsylvania, trying to prevent Tim Michels from becoming the governor of Wisconsin, and basically helped only Jack Kemp. Oops, I'm sorry, Brian Kemp. That's a disgrace to Jack Kemp's name, frankly. This is everywhere. Everywhere. This is not, and it's not normal. It's just not. Republicans always want a registered voter poll, at least, if not a likely voter poll, because I'm telling you, for years, it would grab these people who aren't eligible to vote. Maybe they're illegal citizens, but that's not really. It got disconnected people. People who were young and haven't registered yet, And maybe they turned 18, but they just didn't register. This is a self-identifying question anyway, so who knows? Maybe some of them got registered on the motor voter rolls, but the amount of people that have a hunting license in the Rust Belt but don't vote, aren't registered to vote, would blow your mind. Blow your mind. I think Democrats are essentially maxed out. I do. I'm even looking at the voter registration update that just occurred in Arizona. Not that Republicans should be jumping for joy or anything, but Democrats have lost voters in this latest update. Independents have bloated more, and Republicans did, in fact, gain voters. That's true. However, the the jump from among independents was the largest. By the way, that's why it is actually pretty important to note that Trump was carrying independents in that poll in Arizona by Emerson yesterday. You'd have to, or at least you have to tie with them. Even if you drive the electorate to R+5, R+8, you better tie up independents because they can overcome that. Because there are, I don't know how to put this. It's getting less and less every year. The McCain wing of the Republican Party in Arizona is shrinking every year. It's now down like 9%. It did look like, if you believe some of the exit polls, it could be upwards of like 12%. Martha McSally lost in the mid-teens, Republican women against Kirsten Sinema. That appears to be shrinking every year, but they're still there. So you need to at least tie with independents to make sure that you don't get swamped. I mean, you could lose them by a little, but you just don't want to. Any event, I'm getting ahead of myself. There is nowhere where Democrats just put over $1 million towards voter registration in Florida. They think that Ron DeSantis is imploding so badly that he's going to cause a blowback in Florida that's going to reverse some of the trends that have shifted Florida to the right. They're also looking at this year, for instance, being the first year that Miami-Dade did not experience an increase in population. So they're seeing some signs that make them think if Republicans implode, they could take Florida back. Let's put a couple million into it. Okay. Their donors don't bat an eye. How many do you think you can get on the rolls? X number. Okay, here's a check. I'm sorry, I can't give you that check because I'm going to give it to Joe Biden so he can destroy Robert Kennedy or Marianne Williamson. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid of the traction that Robert Kennedy is getting with a couple of these groups in the Democratic Party. So I'm going to give my money to Joe Biden and make sure that he destroys them. Joe Biden's lead over Robert Kennedy Jr. is getting to be roughly on par with Trump's lead over Ron DeSantis. That's where we're at now. It's almost identical in Arizona. Depends how many people you ask. I mean, depends how many people you peg against Joe Biden. Joe Biden has a much less crowded field. So if you just do the real world ballot, Joe Biden does a little bit better, but it's not that much. Last time we had Joe Biden at 64 and Donald Trump at 59. Not that different. At all. You don't see them flocking to Joe Biden with fear. We got to stop this guy, Kennedy. They're not interrupting. Joe Biden's doing everything in his power to rig the primary himself, whatever. He's the president. That's his prerogative. But you don't see donors trying to destroy other candidates. They want to win. They want to win. If they saw this number, this would be in a presentation right now. What do you mean? Trump's lead is 57-16 when you combined non-registered voters with registered voters. 86% of these people who aren't registered would vote for, or 68, excuse me, would vote for Donald Trump. Well, now let's put some money behind it. You're telling me Trump leads by 4 among registered voters, but he leads by 20 among people who are not registered? Well, we better get him registered. Don't you think? These are freaking dumb people. They may know how to hire some kid out of MIT who can come out with an algorithm to quickly trade and shave a half a penny off every second. But they don't know anything about politics. It's a shame, too. I don't know that Republicans, look at this. I don't know that Republicans have had an opportunity like this. This is everything they claim they wanted after they lost in 2012. What they have right now is everything. It's not just the premise poll, okay? So don't give me this, premise poll, crap. Okay, it's everybody. In the New York Times poll, I got news for you. It's right there staring you right in the face. Trump +6 among new voters. What do you think it is among non-voters? For a party that harkens back to Abe Lincoln all the time, they don't listen to a damn lesson he had to offer. A house divided cannot what? Cannot what? It's like this 10% is holding the majority hostage and paralyzing them from doing anything productive to defeat their actual political enemies who want to throw them in jail. Jail's first. Who knows, Peter Vine? They may not like something you did. Maybe you end up behind bars, but not your kids and your grandkids. That shit tends to escalate. They end up against a wall. That's how this stuff goes. Bunch of worthless piece of you know what in society. By the way, I guess that's from part 4, JK Lock 420, part 4. That's locals, right? Just now, I'm in Ohio, and that's why my brother and mom voted no. Thank you. Getter from Getter. Thank you. JK on Getter. Thank you. This identity crisis cannot continue. It cannot. Look, why? Why? Why would you give this up? All political parties are going to have corruption. But I don't know that I can go back and find an instance in which a political party was so corrupt that it actually stopped its own candidates from winning or doing better than they could have. Can somebody in history find me an example of when a political party did their own dirty and was willing to cost themselves an election? And actually, not just an election, a series of elections. They were willing to throw certain Senate candidates to the wolves in 2018, no doubt. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, they would have lost. Mike Braun, you wouldn't be a senator right now. Damn sure better know that. They were cool with Donnelly. Donnelly was one of them. Same thing with Claire McCaskill. She was one of them. She had a lot of Republican friends up there in the upper chamber. They didn't want you, Josh. No, sir. And Rick Scott, Bill Nelson was like McConnell's homeboy. Are you kidding me? He was a hero. He was a NASA spaceman. Then comes 22, or 20 even. They sacrificed themselves. I don't know about this report yet, folks. Anytime there's something this big that comes out, like I see, and I know you guys want me to address these voter fraud reports that have come out. It's not just the Gateway Pundit, who I'm always very careful with. It's not just the Gateway Pundit. Todd Woods, Creative Destruction Media, CD Media, sent me something to look at. They did run with it. It's bad. ES&G made false statements about the ability of their systems to meet standards if they use or interchange different equipment. And they falsely represented whether or not certain places, by the way, Florida is one of them, Arizona also. And guess who's involved? Runbeck. Anyway, they falsely misrepresented whether or not interchanging some of these systems still allowed them to pass the requirements to be certified for that state. That's a lie. And ironically, there are tons and tons. I'm wondering, like, one thing that jumped out at me immediately is the number of blank ballots. The percentage of blank ballots recorded as blank ballots anyway for election day was significantly higher than any other batch of votes. I don't like that at all. That smells like you know what to me. And the Gateway Pundit thing, if you take away anything from that story, whether or not, I mean, look, they have reports. It's not like you have to take, this is the thing with this latest Gateway Pundit story. You don't really have to believe in the credibility of the Gateway Pundit or anyone who wrote it, because I've been pissed at them before. You know that. They misquoted things I've said. One about Fulton County and what a change of address flag is. They completely misrepresented. And then I had to deal with fact checkers for a week. It pissed me off. And PolitiFact still hasn't corrected that story. They still have a fact check on me that is just not what I said. Even Snopes had to fact check PolitiFact. Fact checking needs to go by the wayside. It needs to go the way of the dodo. All right. It's totally useless. And worse, it's deceptive. It's worse than regular media propaganda because it claims to be the arbiter of truth, and it's not at all. PolitiFact couldn't give two you-know-whats less about what I had to say. I explained it to that twit in great detail. I'm not sure she was smart enough to even understand what I was saying. Snopes, on the other hand, called, and I got to give it to them, called with a totally different attitude. I don't really know these terms. I don't really know what you're saying. So why don't you just tell me what you're claiming, explain it, and then we'll do our research and see. Okay, fair enough. Not the idiot from PolitiFact. Polititwit just thought she knew better when she didn't even know what a change of address flag meant. She thought like them, like the Gateway Pundit, that immediately means it's like a fraudulent ballot or something. It's just a simple record status, you idiot. However, they are low-hanging fruit for fraud. Because if you left the state of Georgia, for instance, if you lived in Fulton County and you left the state, you moved to, I don't know, Wyoming, I don't know, and you left your voter record on there, but eventually the post office gets that change of address flag, you get tagged with it. But because, Ratburger and his team of anti-Trump idiots don't really care about cleaning up their voter records, they leave that record on the system. Then when an election comes around, especially if you make it easy for inactive records to just get unsolicited mail-in ballots, somebody will grab that ballot, fill it in, and send it back. Signatures won't match. It'll match the other 10,000 that were just handed in the same day from the same person, and that's it. And no one will ever know because that person's never going to request that absentee ballot and say, wait a minute, where's my ballot? Why? Because they're voting in Wyoming, where they live now, where they reside now. Anyway, you don't have to take the credibility of the Gateway Pundit on it. They have the report from the Muskegon Police Department, who then kicked it up after their investigation found not just one woman who handed in 8,000 to 10,000 registrations alone one day and then brought in an additional 2,500 the next day, because that's reality. Come on, get the hell. By the way, the police use the same GPS geolocation software that Dinesh D'Souza highlighted in his 2000 Mules or whatever it was called movie, where the media said that technology was garbage. It's also the same technology that every pollster uses. It's the same technology law enforcement uses. So that's what the Muskegon Police Department used. Shocker. And when they found that it was beyond their jurisdiction, the criminal activity that they were investigating went beyond their jurisdiction, they brought in the state police. The state police then kicked it to Bill Barr's FBI. Bill Barr, that fat piece of shit, then said there was no evidence of anything. It got buried at the Justice Department with fat Bill Barr. But it doesn't matter anyway. What are we talking about this for? Republican self-sabotaging. The Republican state legislature had access to the state police, do they not? So how did they not know about that when they did their investigation? Tell you what, that's why Jocelyn Benson wouldn't give us the affidavits, the absentee ballot affidavits. That's why Jocelyn Benson wouldn't do it. Those signatures are not going to match. By state law, she was required to keep those for 2 years. They're not going to match. Tons of them aren't going to match. You're telling me that a single person who had all of her prepaid cards loaded up with money all the time, burner phones, one of the residences they went to, folks, there were suppressors and firearms. How many activist Democrats do you know keep an arsenal with them? No. There are only two people who do that in this country that are citizens anyway. Criminal organizations and right-wingers. No, not saying it in a bad way, right-wingers. I'm just saying. There's like your Second Amendment lovers who think any day now I'm going to have to defend myself from a tyrannical government. They stockpile. And then you have criminal organizations that stockpile. Left-wingers do not stockpile. Unless they're going to go and, like, I don't know, shoot up a Christian group or something. Then they stockpile. So I don't know. I need some time to look at that and verify stuff. But the truth is, the police officer did, who's cited in that report, the only update to that story since it's been published is a clarification of his statement. And what his statement was clarified to say does not debunk the story or the report or the investigation at all. In fact, if anything, it's a read between the lines kind of statement, like wink, wink. I don't want to lose my job, but I'm telling you this got buried. I'm telling you this was not investigated thoroughly, and this probably happened in a lot more places. Also, there are clerks, folks. That was a low-level clerk who alerted law enforcement to that wholly unbelievable discrepancy in voter registration. The clerk themselves, though, I'm talking about the elected clerk. Every county has a clerk that deals with it. Kent County's Republican. Muskegon was a Republican. And they must have. This is what Laura and I tried to tell you. And for those of you who weren't following us, maybe at that time you don't know, when we were investigating Michigan, they had to have turned a blind eye to this, because a lower level person is going to see this stuff and say, this isn't right. Something's not right here. Boss, should I alert law enforcement? And in many cases, obviously, they were either told not to, or the clerk didn't think they would be allowed. In this particular case, it appears the clerk just did it on their own. And then they had to bury it later anyway. And Urshul says they don't want to win. Honestly, there is a big part of this. I would say, like all non-Democratic Party entities in politics, there is absolutely a part of them that just doesn't. They don't care if they win or not, as long as they're still there. But I mean, they don't want the overall party or overall movement to win. They've been lying to voters about who they are and what they are for way too long. They just simply don't want to have to, if I could find the clip, I would get it and I would put it up, because Rush Limbaugh said this years ago, and he was totally right. One of the major reasons why they hate Donald Trump is because they cannot have a guy like him, who's not part of the political system, just come along out of nowhere and get things done. Because then what does that make them look like? Then people ask, well, what the hell have you been doing for decades with your phony campaign promises? So to some extent, they don't want to win, because then they have to explain themselves. Rush was right about that. That is 100% true. Come on, think about it. All right, I get it. Let's go to a commercial break, top of the hour. Oh, I'm telling you, folks. I'm telling you. And you trust these people to deal with things like take care of critical infrastructure? Authorities already fear extremists are targeting the U.S. power grid. If just 9 key substations were to go down, it would knock out power across the country for up to 18 months. Most of our lives would be frozen in time the moment the power went out. You know it. I know it. Are you protected? Bet you aren't. That's why you need a solar generator. And the new Patriot Power Generator 2000X is portable, but it's still powerful enough for your phones, medical devices, even your refrigerator. You may have a loved one that you need to make sure their medical devices are still working. You do not want to waste all that money on food. Do you have stockpiles of food? Right now, you could go to 4patriots.com and get one for 10% off if you use the code TPP10 at checkout. This code is for your first purchase only, so make it count. Make it a big one. Get yourself some savings. Again, that's 4patriots.com. Use the promo code TPP10 to get your Patriot Power Generator today. And as you can see right there, there's some really cool sales additional with it. You will always get this like really, they always have something going on. It's never just what, it's never just like the generator without this. That's what's awesome about 4Patriots. They are incredibly generous with their offers, and you're getting 10% on top almost always, and almost guaranteed. You're getting 10% off on top of whatever it is that they're offering for that time. And that's why Laura and I love them. And I'll tell you right now, Laura and I have long been 4Patriots customers, long before they were ever a supporter of the show. Or, what else do you call them? Long before they were ever an advertising supporter on the show. We love 4Patriots. We literally trust them and their products to take care of our family in moments of crisis. Any of you have ever lived in Florida, you know you need to prepare for crisis. But it's not just weather. It's anything. Incompetence. We really are getting to a point. Scott Adams tweeted the other day, is exactly right. We're now at a point where we have leaders who not only can't understand the problems, they're just not capable of solving them. And that's a very dangerous place to be. But unfortunately, that is the state of the republic. What I tell you, these guys at Jam and Bean, what I tell you, patriots to the core. If you go to Jam and Bean right now and use the promo code TPP40 on any new subscription, whether it's coffee, their gourmet popcorn, you will get 40% off right then and there. And yet, when your subscription renews, then every month, you will still get 10% off on that renewal automatically. So that's Jam and Bean, JAMN bean.com. Use the promo code TPP40. Whether you're a K-cup person or freshly roasted and you like to grind it yourself and then brew it yourself right then and there, they got something for you, and it's magnificent. I am not a medium body guy, but they have a full-bodied medium roast that is so good. And you just can't get them in K-cups like that. You can't. I've tried them all. And I like Green Mountain, for K-cup stuff like that. They don't even come. They don't hold a candle. Their medium tastes like nothing. Like nothing. Sorry, Green Mountain. It's true. Jam and Bean not only is delicious, but it'll keep you going throughout the day if you need it like me. Jamandbean.com, promo code TPP40 at checkout. All right. So I got a little video I think I want to play here. What is that, Kimmy? Republicans to Trump. You're making us look bad. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Unbelievable. Couldn't be any more backward. It's like Kimmy's right. That's what they do. You're making us look bad. You're making us look bad. Look at this. You should be ashamed of yourselves. It's pathetic. Pathetic. And normally we don't even report the adults. We do report a lot of the registered voters that are certain not to vote. We do that sometimes, especially when we're showing you the difference between the registered voter sample and the likely voter sample. That has been now, like I said, I really started noticing it about a year and a half ago. Oh no, we're coming up on 2 years now. Oh my God, it's August already. Well, at least fall's coming. I love fall. And the pumpkin spice creamer for the coffee. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I love fall. I love it. I do. I love the holiday season. Always have. But I can't believe it's coming up on us that quick. So since like October of 21, so that's now almost 2 full years, I've been noticing it, although I found evidence of it before that it started to happen. They have the nerve, Kimmy, when he's got all of these like non-registered voters who, and that's no kidding. Of course, we should have seen it coming because, of course, he drew 11 million more votes. So, of course, we should have seen it coming. 45% of the Iowa caucus is a new caucus goer. Duh. That before he had even secured the nomination in May, 2 months before, he already beat George W. Bush's record for the most votes ever received by a Republican candidate for the nomination. George W. Bush had that record previously. And Trump stepped on it months before he even clinched the nomination. I guess we should have saw that coming. But we didn't. And there's so much noise all the time. There's all this noise from these fake pundits, these bull you-know-whaters. Anyway, the other day, Robert and I were talking about the Dilly meme team and how they're just killing Ron DeSantis. Before we get into the national polling trend, a couple of things I want to bring up here. There are two that are just unbelievable how brutal these memes are. And as I'm like watching the latest, I'm like, oh my God, look who it is. It's me. I'm in the meme. So let's go ahead and play this video. Oops, sorry. I meant to remove that. My fault. Dilly meme team, ladies and gentlemen. Again, it's not anti. Just Just watch.
DeSantis campaign told the Messenger that this was their last, quote, reload.
Wait, that's what I meant. So Barnes and I on Monday were talking about the shakeups. Do they have a campaign problem or do they have a candidate problem? And, of course, Barnes and I were both saying, I mean, they have both. I mean, they have idiots around them in the campaign, but they were amateurs who made rookie mistakes like hyping up presidential announcements. You never hype events, ever. Because if you fail to live to the hype, live up to that hype, if you overpromise and underperform, you will be a joke in the news cycle loop. And it will be incredibly difficult for you to get out of it. And that's really what's been happening to DeSantis. He's been in one I'm a joke of the news cycle loop after another for hell, folks, since he announced his campaign. All right. But with the backdrop of that,
DeSantis campaign told the Messenger that this was their last, quote, reload. If DeSantis fails to catch fire after the first debate, which is in a couple of weeks, is that a sign that maybe the staffing isn't the issue?
He doesn't have competent, capable people around him. It's clear he doesn't. In fact, he has some of the most incompetent, incapable people around. When you got people like losers like Bill Mitchell, John Cardillo, I mean, these guys are the gutter. This isn't the B team or the C team. This is the F+ team.
Go there. You want to talk about sanctimony? Give me a break.
However good of a liar and a henchman you think Roger Stone is, these are demons, guys. These are the people that will be tormenting Roger Stone in hell forever if he doesn't repent. He's the JV team. Maybe not even that. Or Loomer's a lost soul. Or Loomer's a lost soul. Or Loomer's a lost soul.
I think that's the issue that he has. Is it the staffing or is it him? I feel like he was kind of like a rebound boyfriend, right? Like you have a bad breakup, you get with the new person, it's all hot and heavy at first, but then after the honeymoon period, it kind of fizzles out and you want that old thing back.
Is Southwest Florida Trump country or what?
And it just doesn't feel like DeSantis has figured out how he can hit Trump and make damage. Like
the idea they would be going after this, I mean, honestly.
So he doesn't know what the hell hit him. He got hit by a very, very big hammer.
Like he knows how to hit the left. He does not know how to hit Trump.
And my people would tell me, sir, don't hit him that hard. He's a Republican. I said, I don't give a damn if he's a Republican. I don't give a damn if he's a Republican.
Neither do the people of Northeastern Ohio. And neither do the 31 pivot counties in Iowa. Demons, lost souls. What are you talking about? These Christians. I mean, Cernovich has been calling them fake Christians for days now, like a week. He's like, these fake Christians, fake Christians, fake Christians. They are the reason for the rise of the nuns. The reason. Judgmental as all hell. Think the people of Trumbull County give a damn about his righteous indignation? You got to be kidding me. Demons and lost souls. By the way, not for nothing, I've been on his show. He's a nice guy, but he is grossly misinformed. And then somebody sent me the other day a video of him on MSNBC. I kid you not. After Trump won. In between the election and the casting of the Electoral College vote, Steve Deese on MSNBC making a pitch to electors to vote their conscience and not vote for Donald Trump. Lost soul? Who's a lost soul? And then there's this. I'm going to play the whole thing because it's worth playing. Is if you don't think this stuff has had an impact, if you don't think the Dilly meme team has brutalized these people, this, of course, it has an impact. And then this one, wow. Let's play it. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but wow.
Es ist dem Feind gelungen, die Front in breiter Formation zu durchbrechen. Im Süden hat der Gegner Zossen genommen und stößt auf Stahnsdorf vor. Der Feind operiert jetzt am nördlichen Stadtrand zwischen Frohnau und Pankow. Und im Osten ist der Feind bis zur Linie Lichtenberg, Marsdorf, Karlshorst gelangt.
Mit dem Angriff Steiners wird das alles in Ordnung kommen.
Mein Führer, Steiner konnte nicht genügend Kräfte für einen Angriff massieren. Der Angriff Steiner ist nicht erfolgt.
The lost soul got him. The lost soul did him in.
Es bleiben im Raum Keitel, Jodl, Krebs und Burgdorf.
Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steiners war ein Befehl! Wer sind Sie? Dass Sie es wagen, sich meinen Befehl zu widersetzen! So weit ist das also gekommen. Das Militär hat mich belogen! Jeder hat mich belogen, sogar die SS! Die gesamte Generalität ist nichts weiter als ein Haufen niederträchtiger, treuloser Feiglinge!
Mein Führer, ich kann nicht zulassen, dass die Soldaten, die für Sie
Nicht
verbringen...
als Feiglinge! Verreiter, Versager!
Mein Führer, was Sie da sagen, ist ungeheuerlich.
Die Generalität ist das Geschmeiß des deutschen Volkes! Sie ist ohne Ehre! Sie nennen sich Generale, weil Sie Jahre auf Militärakademien zugebracht haben, nur um zu lernen, wie man Messer und Gabel hält! Jahrelang hat das Militär meine Aktionen nur behindert! Es hat mich jeden nur als Widerstand in den Weg gelegt! Ich hätte gut daran getan, von Jahren alle höheren Offiziere liquidieren zu lassen, wie Stalin! Ich war nie auf einer Akademie. Und doch habe ich allein auf mich gestellt, ganz Europa erobert.
Minus the monkey business.
Verräter! Von allem Anfang an bin ich so verraten und betrogen worden. Es wurde ein ungeheurer Verrat geübt am deutschen Volke. Aber alle diese Verräter werden bezahlen. Mit ihrem eigenen Blut werden sie bezahlen. Sie werden es saufen in ihrem eigenen Blut.
Bitte gerne. Jetzt beruhig dich doch.
It's Puja.
Meine Befehle sind in den Wind gesprochen. Es ist unmöglich, unter diesen Umständen zu führen. Es ist aus. Der Krieg ist verloren. Aber wenn Sie, meine Herren, glauben, dass ich deswegen Berlin verlasse, irren Sie sich gewaltig. Eher jage ich mir eine Kugel durch den Kopf. Tun Sie, was Sie wollen.
Someone fetch me some pudding. Oh my God. For those who don't know what that reference is, the man eats pudding with his fingers. Okay. I don't know what to say. Let's just move on to the trend, shall we? Let's just look, memes can be brutal, especially when they reinforce something people already think. And I gotta say, I think my favorite part was the "Don't worry, Christina, it's not your fault." Yeah, because I mean, it is where it is. Look, I said this on everywhere I was on yesterday. If you haven't checked out the interview on Steak for Breakfast, that was a really good one. I also really enjoyed going on the radio Mid-Atlantic heard me loud and clear yesterday when Sean was filling in for Wendy. We had like 3 segments that really discussed this as well as, and then with Biden on Bannon on War Room as well. God, somebody don't tell Steve I just said Biden. Anyway, the bottom line is, at this point, we're all just like looking at this like this could be the biggest historic screw up ever for a presidential campaign. He's definitely going to surpass Walker, even if, because at this point, I think Tim on his Substack, who's following and shadowing the DeSantis campaign, he's telling the truth. They're just sitting around now at this point. The strategy is, let's just be the one with the runner-up number of delegates, because if he's convicted, if he is charged with something worse, whatever it may be, if we find ourselves in mid-May, if we find ourselves in the summer, before the convention, whatever it may be, facing a situation where we can make a real pitch that he being Trump, removed from the ballot, and it would have to be us with the runner-up against the nomination, there's no chance that you're going to be president. It's never going to happen. All right. Their pitch is, well, of course there will, because we're going to tell Trump voters that you have to vote for us, otherwise your guy's going to jail and we can't pardon him. That's going to be that's the pitch. I don't know if you guys, we haven't had a chance to talk about this on Inside the Numbers. So I'll tell you what the latest thing is they're telling donors, which is, we will get the MAGA vote because we will tell them if they do not vote for us, that he'll go to jail. So they'll have to face the decision of him facing the rest of his life in prison or coming out and voting anyway. You're not going to get enough of them to do that. Even if you get the majority of those holdouts, it's not going to be enough. You need basically every single one of them in order to win. Ohio is a great example. You can lose it by 10 or you can win it by 10. And even getting a majority of the Trump-only vote to come out is not enough. Needed every single vote. You need 90+% easy, if not 95, 98. I'm not kidding. You basically need every vote. And that's not going to happen no matter what. So this is where the Republican Party is at the moment. And this is why I said the other day that, or earlier in the segment even, Joe Biden should be the easiest president to beat in the modern era, incumbent president to beat. But as of right now, you have to kind of like his chances, because you can never, even though we're going to go over this trend, you can never put it past Republicans to be their own worst enemy. They are. Again, what makes up the modern elected Republican Party? You have 1/3 stupid, 1/3 corrupt, and 1/3 scared. And when you put it all together, bake it in an oven, you get Kevin McCarthy. So he could talk all he wants about how much they're inching towards impeachment. Folks, if the House were to have moved like Democrats would have moved, I submit you would not have seen a lot of these indictments come down. Maybe you would have gotten the one from Alvin Bragg, probably still. You would have gotten the one from Fannie in Georgia that's coming, which, by the way, get ready for it, because we just got another bombshell about Biden today with bribes. So get ready for another indictment. This has been the very clear trend. You're not going to convict Joe Biden in the Senate, but that would not be the point. It will be extremely difficult for them to charge Donald Trump with several of these things that they intend to charge him with, or have already charged him with, if the Congress went through an impeachment inquiry. So Nancy Pelosi already set a new precedent about what an impeachment proceeding looks like. She decided that she wasn't going to stick to the norms. She decided she was not going to limit the scope. So you are simply just forcing the media, who is ignoring what is Trump's defense to a lot of these indictments, from January 6th to, Ukraine corruption, China corruption, Romanian corruption. You're not going to get the conviction, but you will force media to cover it. and they will cover it slanted. They will cover it in an unfair way. I watched the New York Times in 24 hours, folks. They have had the years-long position that Joe Biden has never discussed or talked with Hunter's business partners. And as soon as that was proven false by Devin Archer's testimony, they immediately changed their tune. It doesn't matter. People aren't stupid, but the information war has to be waged. You can't just expect them to go and research it themselves and come to a conclusion that you want them to come to. In 2020, only about 72 to 74%, Wisconsin was like 74, Pennsylvania was like 72, had told us that they were aware of the news reports about Biden with Tony Bobulinski and, this potential bribery scheme and this corruption scheme that now is being uncovered. Among them, not all of them believed it was real because you had all of these fake, not even fake, but you had all of these not credible intel people come forward and say that it was Russian disinformation. So even if 72% had heard about it, if, they're roughly split on whether or not they think it's legit, it's not going to be a very effective campaign tool. It's not going to be a very effective message. They're not going to be thinking, oh my God, well, even though there are things I hate about Donald Trump, I mean, is it possible we could elect somebody who's really this dirty? And Donald Trump's not dirty. As far as I know, he hasn't taken any bribes from foreign entities, which he never did. Let's get real. So the decency argument goes out the window. And at the end of the day, despite what you see or you hear from pundits, like in the New Hampshire poll that was released, 70-something% of Republicans said they would vote for Donald Trump even if he's convicted. Remember, sampling errors for subgroups are higher. So it can actually be just about the same as a normal base support. And even, by the way, a majority said they would vote for him from a jail cell. Even if he's convicted, even if, they try to put him in a jail cell. If Republicans actually did their jobs, if Kevin McCarthy actually did their job, it would be a choice between this guy who's being persecuted by Biden and who is Joe Biden. Oh my God, look what he's done. So the credibility of the persecutions would collapse. And it's still an A/B test at the end of the day. Still an A/B test. All right. By the way, just a note on the Emerson poll in Arizona. Nationally, third-party voters appear on the surface to hurt Joe Biden. But in states like Arizona, just as we found in the last 2 election cycles, third-party candidates are hurting Republicans. In very close elections, they're actually costing the Republican the election. So that's the way it appears if you go and look at Spencer Kimball's comment from that Arizona poll. I saw that on Truth before, and I just wanted to address it. So that's where we're at. So Republicans, again, if they were like Democrats, I don't think you would have saw these indictments, or at least not that many of them. Not that many of them. You have attorney generals in the state of Michigan prosecuting alternate electives, even though there's been alternate electors in the past. Nobody ever got prosecuted for it. Even though they're old enough to be people's grandparents, some of them. And yet, there's exculpatory evidence coming out now in reports. Wouldn't it be nice if Republicans in the legislature actually investigated that instead of pretending like they did and they didn't? Would those people be able to be charged right now if they had a legitimate investigation in the legislature? I don't think so. Because they would have uncovered all of that. It didn't take a lot for us to find, for us to be able to cross-reference people that were newly registered, even though they were in other states, or people that had requested absentee ballots who had change of address flags and were registered in a state after that change of address tag was set off. They just didn't do it. I think Bill Barr, no, we looked at it. There was no evidence. Nah, he killed that investigation. He killed it. It died. It died like Hunter Biden's laptop died. It died like John Durham's findings about corruption and prosecutorial misconduct and complete and total abuse of the Fourth Amendment. It died like Durham's findings died. Like the FBI is apparently where corruption goes to die. Like corruption investigations go to die. Sad. But that's someone's defense. If Republicans would have done their job and fought back instead of entertaining the likes of Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, by the way, if Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger were on that committee and actually did their job, would some of those people have been convicted of trespassing when there's clearly video footage of police officers just allowing them to walk in the Capitol building? It's called exculpatory evidence. So there you have it. And a little bit of word on, I just want to tell you guys a little bit of word on the charges with Trump in DC. Anyone, and look, I very much respect people like Jonathan Turley and others, but the fact of the matter is, Mark Levin, you're guilty of this too. If you're offering analysis that doesn't flatly acknowledge the illegitimacy of the DC court system, then you're not really offering analysis. So you're getting, like Jonathan Turley wrote a great article the other day, but it's an article about even Trump's state of mind. Even if you were to prove that he was lying and knew he was lying about the election, it still isn't good enough to secure a conviction. I don't want to hear that crap. We all know that even if they can't prove Donald Trump's state of mind the way that the law requires, they will still get a conviction. They're going to get a conviction in DC. You cannot fully appreciate how dirty and how ideologically possessed that district is unless you've done work like Barnes and I have done work. We have watched innocent men and women go to jail despite what the facts of the case have said. We have pled and begged crooked judges to provide defendants change of venues, showing them unarguable, demonstrable proof that the juror pool is tainted. They don't care. In no other district would you have seen the judges line up like that in the courtroom. None. No way. And the truth is, they don't have to prove anything. 96% of the population in the District of Columbia, the potential juror pool, would convict Donald Trump for anything. Evidence be damned. Their belief systems have completely possessed their reason. They are unable to filter facts correctly through those belief systems. And they are, I use the word possessed because in a sense, they are possessed by their own biases. They are not in the driver's seat. They're just along for the ride. It's an illusion of like free will. I've come to a conclusion to vote for conviction. It's an illusion. They're just along for the ride in their own subconscious. This is something Barnes and I had been talking about for years. Even before the January 6th defendants were clearly being used as a precedent to go after Donald Trump. If it was so obvious, I don't know what. And you even had people like Julie Kelly screaming at the top of their lungs, this is what they're doing. And so when Republicans, when you turn on your TV and click to Fox News, ask yourself whether or not they're really, you're on your side. They're not. They should have led the charge against those injustices, and they did not. They entertained it, just like they entertained Russia collusion. Britt Hume, who wrote that on Twitter the other day, can apologize for it all he wants. Maybe you went a little too far. Britt Hume entertained Russia collusion. Hell, Ron DeSantis on Fox News entertained Russia collusion. I think we need to let Mr. Mueller play it out. He's got a great reputation. Let's see what he finds. Sure. Let a crooked cop with unprecedented resources abuse the fourth, first, and however Amendment rights, 14th Amendment rights of an American citizen, a president at this point, For the sake of what? So they can run some kind of Stalin-like investigation, some Stasi-like investigation where they overturn everything in your life. Folks, I don't care how clean you think you are. A federal prosecutor could root through your life and find something to charge you with. And if they can't, they'll trick you into a process crime because that's what they do. Even Martha Stewart, at the end of the day, she was clean of what they alleged she did. She just screwed up and sent an email with incorrect information, and that's what Comey got her on. That's it. Nothing in Michael Flynn's transcript with the Russian ambassador was illegal. That was all clout, smoke, and mirrors. Nothing he did while the incoming transition team, incoming national security advisor or counsel, nothing he said as the new incoming NSA to the Russian diplomat was illegal. He didn't violate the Logan Act. Those were called pretexts. Bull pretexts to be able to trick him into a process crime, which they did. I still to this day can't believe a man with his career got tricked like that, thinking the FBI was like the good guy or something. And they would have gotten others as well. Katie McFarland, same thing. Only by that time, she had at least the benefit of knowing what they were or had already done to other people, so she didn't fall for it. All right. So I'm not done yet. I just want to show you so far because I've gotten 2022 in. I got to get 2021 in. I started with the final summer to fall polling from 2020. And I just got to get the last November 2nd poll in from 2020. But you can see like basically the benchmark. They're both the same anyway. They're both Biden +4s. And I've gone backwards. I'm working my way backward because MarketSite is still giving me a hard time, which really sucks. Because we're doing a national poll this weekend, it looks like. So if we do, as much as I hate to say this, but if we don't figure out what's wrong and if they don't get back to us, we're going to have to leave them and go somewhere else. And that's a shame because we've been with them almost the entire time I've been a public pollster. Almost the entire time. It's tragic. And I've asked Robert and others, I'm talking about Cahaley, like, have you had these problems? And he hasn't. So it looks like the problem is solely mine. All right, so it is 1:34. How much time do I have to do this? God, Jack, that was great. And Pasovic had shared this, by the way. He did say, by the way, the meme is being passed around Tallahassee, and it sent him a copy. So this is a meme that's getting sent around Florida because they are now at this point doing the intimidation thing, you know? Like, your guy is going down. We're openly mocking him. These are what our meme supporters are doing to him. And we're just going to kind of stick our thumb in your eye. So, yeah. And Laura said, what time? 2:05, Laura? Or 2? I may have to end the show a little bit early, so I'm ready for it. But switch right over to human events, and I'll be on with Jack Pasovic. All right, I love talking to Jack. I wish it would have been on Monday, actually. But we had what are the odds right when his show is. All right. Oh, I thought I had this up. You guys couldn't see that? Or did Laura? Did you take it down? Never did show it to them, I guess. All right, so here it is. All right, one thing you can notice right off the bat. Third-party vote share. Third-party candidate vote share since at least January 2022. And we'll find out more when I go back into my archives of 21. But at least starting in the beginning of 2022, rose. It was only about 4% in 2020, and now it has risen to a high of just under 15, and it currently is around 12 to 10, all right, percent. That is, despite what you hear from all these other idiots, quite common. It is quite even with candidates who have universal name recognition. So that's another lie. In 2016, the third-party vote share was huge. It only began to fall the weekend before January 4th. I went back and looked at our archives. It was the weekend before January 4th. July 3rd was the day we first measured third-party support below, I think it was 14%. Gary Johnson routinely got between 7-9%, until it collapsed at the end. And Jill Stein, was getting between 2 and 5. So it is common. Everyone knew who Hillary Clinton was. Everyone knew who Joe Biden was. Their unfavorables both were high. That's true. But you can go back and find Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama. Mitt Romney was the de facto "it's my turn" nominee. We've been over this before. And yet there was still a huge undecided. In polls, if they gave them a third party, you would see third party chunk there too. But many of them back then did not, because there were no third parties to really consider. I mean, they were there, but they weren't serious, not like post 2016 and on, or 2016 and on, sorry, post Mitt Romney. So it just manifested in the form of undecideds, which you would see in around this time. Rasmussen was tied at 43. Quinnipiac was tied at 45. The rest were undecided. So it manifests in that form. All right, so we can see that the someone else is coming down from its high, though, as we get closer. And as I think people come to understand, despite what happens with the lawfare against Donald Trump, it is very likely this is a rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So as I think the electorate has begun to accept that, you've seen the share of someone else or third-party vote fall by about 33%. We'll see if that continues. All right. And you can actually see somewhat, undecided's got some of that at some point. Got a little bit in that from that May to the summer. And we'll get another one very soon, by the way. Get another one very, 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 very soon. Trump is hovering after being mired in the low 40s. And then the final one, I believe, is 45. It was like the final one, I believe, is Biden 49, Trump 45. But you could see in 2020, Trump was mired between 40. Actually, it was worse than that. It was in the 30s at some point, too. It was like 38 to 45. And Biden was between 42 and 49. Now, Biden has collapsed. And typically, he hovers between 36 and 40 in our poll. And Trump hovers between 40 and 47. So for me, it's always about the range. Even when we go back and look at the polling trend that we had in 2016 with Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, it was the range. They traded leads here and there. In our polling, Trump was ahead of Hillary by a little bit more. Or I would say Trump was ahead of Hillary more than Hillary was ahead of him. That was very clear. And that's why, even though the popular vote went to Hillary, because what we were identifying, it was simply a weighting thing. If we had weighted by area, it was a geography weighting issue. We had traditional shares for each candidate when you were looking at major metropolitan areas, and that turned out to not be the case. At the end of the day, 2 metropolitan areas gave Hillary Clinton her popular vote lead. That's it. Los Angeles and New York. You could even exclude Chicago from that. Los Angeles and New York City. Outside of that, it's Trump. So it's very easy, depending on how you weight for region, it would have been very, 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 very easy to have Trump slightly up, which we did 0.2 of a percentage point, I believe it was, well within the sampling error of the survey, which was 2.1. So, or something like that, or 2.4, it was something like that. So there you have it. But the range always said to me, Trump is stronger. He has stronger support. Even during the Billy Bush time, he did not fall as much as I thought that he would. There was a response bias with Republican women for a period of 2 to 3 days. Then they came back. They answered their surveys at the same rate, and Trump went back to where he was before. It was a momentary glitch. The poll swings that you saw were response biases built in as artifacts of the polls themselves, not real swings. They're artifacts of the methodology of modern polling. Here, we haven't seen Trump fall into the 40s at all. I mean, into the 30s at all. Never did. And in the premise poll that I just shared with you, Biden was at what, 38? What did I just say? Let me make sure I get it right. I hate saying things it's not true. In the premise poll for 538 that just came out, Biden is at 38, Trump is at 42. So we had in our last one, Trump at 44.4, very close. Very, very close. And Biden at 40. So it's Trump plus 4, basically. Yeah. If you round to the nearest whole for each, it's a Trump plus 4. And I think I'm going to put the spreads on for this when I'm done with it. But it was getting out of hand. And then nowhere did I have a log of the top lines for all the national polls we've been doing. And I wanted to do that. And I'm going to put this up on Big Data Poll. We're going to have the Trump versus Biden trend going back to 2020, which is going to be really cool. Because there were not many pollsters that you keep seeing every month really did do that like we did. And a lot of that had to do with the Epoch Times sponsoring us through the summer. So thank you for that. All right. But generally, it's been, I know in 2021, there's going to be some pretty big Trump leads. Rasmussen found it as well. There was like a Trump plus 9 one month we had. They had a Trump plus 11 that month. I remember talking to them and saying, my God, are you polling general election this month? I am about to put out a poll that's going to blow everybody's minds and I'm going to get attacked. And they were like, we got Trump up by 11. It's coming out on Tuesday. I'm like, oh, well, it's only 2 points different. So there's going to be some, between here and here, there are some pretty big Trump leads. Actually, from here to here, I believe. There'll be some really big ones. I think it's in the summer or spring and summer. And in the fall, it starts to narrow again. But we'll find out. We'll find out soon, and I'll put it up. But as you can see, it's what I've been trying to tell people for a long time. This is not the same race. It is not the same race. And even not the same race that you saw versus Hillary, that we saw when we were polling Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. Many, many occasions, the both of them would be in the high 30s to low 40s. It was not clear that one had some dominant advantage. It really wasn't. And if I can find that real quick, I will show it to you. There it is. Okay. All right. I don't know why there's another one. Huh. I should have seen where. Yeah, this is good. This works. Let me get the where are you? Public link, copy. So I can always just go back for this one. So let's do it here. Okay. Come on, look good. I haven't looked at the public side of it in a long time. It's crappy looking. All right, but you could still see that they're, very much in the high 30s, low 40s for most of the race. Here is the Republican convention, and you can see Trump starts to take like a few point lead here. There's the Republican convention, followed by the Democratic convention, where Clinton actually takes or tightens Trump's biggest lead. So I think Trump didn't get his biggest lead until after the convention. Then the Democrat, at the height of the Democratic convention, Trump's at the highest he's ever been, which was 47%. And Clinton's at 40. And it starts, or 48 was Trump's high. Then he starts to come down. She starts to come up. I know a lot of people didn't even know there was a Green Party convention going on. It levels, it stabilizes. Here we have plot lines we have the presidential debates, right? And bam, the Billy Bush tape. That hurt him a little bit, but eventually it just kind of stuck by. And here you have Stein at 3, Johnson at 8, right? So look at how high it was all the way in the beginning of July. And it didn't start to like level out and go down until, when is this? July 24th. But I'm telling you, it was very, very early in July when it started to come down and get into the normal range that it was. So this is what I kind of expect to see this time around. If this same dynamic is going on, at the end of the day, they both ended up in the mid 40s with Trump slightly ahead, 0.6 of a percentage point, but that's where they ended up. So, for people who are like, oh, this is crazy and uncommon. No, it's not. It takes a very, very long time. And this was a panel, obviously. So we were telling people, you have to decide. Look how long they took to decide. finally. On November 6th, it was still 5%. Some of them, we eventually just decided to tell them, look, if you do, you know the deal. If you don't decide and give us your final answer, you're going to be put into the I'm not voting category. There's no reason you told us you would participate in this poll to the very end. There is no reason that you're not going to give us this information. So I believe like 1% or so went into the I'm not voting category. But for the most part, they all decided. A lot of people threw away their vote to the third party at the end. Look at that. You can see Gary Johnson in a final day before the final responses. We got Johnson's margin pretty much very much on the money. I think people really, truly didn't know who they were going to decide for, or some people who were going to go third party just did not vote because Johnson's margin shoots up. Clinton goes from 40, come on, Clinton, move, 44.5 to 45.2. Johnson goes from 3.2 to 6.6. And Stein was like up 1/10 of a percentage point. So I think a lot of people just threw away their vote, and their pictures used to be here. I don't know what's going on here. Things update, things change. It's even hard to find major media outlets. They have a hard time archiving their long-running polling stuff too. The Des Moines poll referenced the other day. I couldn't find the actual poll. All I could find is the article. The PDF they uploaded, the polling data itself was not there. So all the demographics I got from the article, from them actually citing them. But anyway, if you look at this and then you go back to what we were talking about with, and actually I'll just hit reverse and you'll see. I kind of expect this to look pretty close, guys. I really do. This will tighten. This will get shorter. We'll try to. Look, Data Wrapper is different than Everviz. What we put on the other one was in confidence intervals, right? So the range, it's different. I've tried to explain this to people before. If you have a mixed mode survey, or if you have an opt-in panel or something of that nature, it is not a traditional margin of error like a fully randomized random digital dial kind of poll is. So you have to have what's called a confidence interval. All right. And there always is, even if when you give a margin of error, that a 95% confidence is technically you saying that, that's my degree of confidence. But an interval is different. So an interval says, because this many people sided with Trump, 485, right? Chose Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton got 400. The confidence interval for each of them will be slightly different because of the sample sizes. It's not like a traditional margin of error. I've got to do a video about this, explaining this with graphics that'll help you, because I've long meant to do that. But again, that's what those bars are. It's pretty cool. I want them again. We're probably going to get them. We'll probably do it again just to show you that this candidate could actually go this high or this low. This is this is their estimated vote share, their most likely vote share, but they could go as high as or as low as. And that's what we did for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And in fact, they both ended up well within their ranges. So even though Trump was up by a little bit, I actually think that we were giving the most accurate reflection of the race. You had the LA Times poll, which was showing way too much support for Donald Trump. We were a close race, but Trump has a slight edge, and that's what happened in the Electoral College, right? Actually, it was more like an Electoral College landslide, but 2020 was closer than 2016. A lot of people don't realize that because of the electoral count. But Trump won Pennsylvania. He won Wisconsin. He won Wisconsin pretty, even though it's a close percentage. It's like, he won Arizona by 3. He didn't win it by a couple thousand votes. He won Georgia by 3.5, something like that. I have to go back and look. Not by less than a percentage point, So some in North Carolina, by the way, was like almost 4 points. So 2016 was not as close, but Trump beat Hillary more decisively than Biden beat Trump. All right. Let me say that, if that makes sense. It's the easiest way I can say. So it's a bit of a preview. I know I got to get off. It's 1:52. And Laura's, I made Jack. I'll make Jack. I'm going to get off now. But that's a preview of what we got coming. When I'm done with it, I'll put it out. I got to throw in 2021 and go through all the confidence intervals, and it'll be cool. It should be pretty cool. And we'll keep it tracking for a while. I am fully expecting to do a poll this weekend. So join the revolution at peoplespundit.locals.com to get it all first, to get the data first. All right. All right. With that in mind, tune in to Human Events in like 5 minutes, right? 10 minutes, something like that. Tune in to Human Events, and I will see you there. All right, folks. And thanks for watching. Don't forget, subscribe if you like the merchandise. It's in the thing below. Get it. We got this fall coming. It's such crazy merch for the fall and winter coming up. All right, guys. Nothing but love for you. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. See you on Friday.